Are you thinking about checking out the movie Poor Things this weekend? Listen to our review, get our perspective on it, and we're going to have a long cut on this with spoilers if you want to hear those.
Welcome back to another episode of ByteSized Talks. I'm Jupe, that's Hempy.
Yeah, so Poor Things, man, this movie is a trip.
Dude, I went in expecting nothing. Holy fuck.
Now, have you guys been watching any of our latest movie reviews? I've been doing them solo. But this one I got out and I was like, Julian, what are you doing tomorrow? I was like, I don't know, I got this, that. I'm like, you got to go see Poor Things. Because I need to talk to somebody about this freaking movie. Like,
and if you go watch it, you're going to need someone to talk about it.
Yeah.
It's wild. Yeah.
So let me give you a basic cap of it, recap, or the broad strokes of it if you haven't seen the previews. So Poor Things, it stars Emma Stone, Mark Ruffalo, and William Dafoe. Emma Stone plays this character that we get to know as Bella Baxter, who when you first meet her, she's kind of talking, kind of like a stumbling toddler, speaks in fragmented sentences, and she looks totally normal, like, totally developed adult, but you're learning something there mentally is off. Something's a little bit different, and this movie's directed by Yorgos Lanthimos. I would say his most notable recent movie was The Lobster, which, if you're familiar with that, it's just kind of like an off-rhythm, weird ride, weird comedy that you're in for. This kind of has a scenery similar to like Wes Anderson movies, like Grand Budapest Hotel or Asteroid City. Victorian era, like steampunk, mechanized world.
Yeah.
With like these like little like this William Dafoe, his character's like a Frankenstein, literally a Frankenstein dude. And he has all these little contraptions, like he has like a horse-drawn carriage, but there's no horse drawn, but it's like just the head of a horse, like a taxidermied horse onto the mechanized, I can't even say that word right now, carriage. Yeah, so the story is centered around, though, Bella Baxter, who's played by Emma Stone, as she is very, even from the previews, you get the sense of like, oh, she was like this scientific creation of William Dafoe, because there's a very like dark quality to like his character, but you get this feeling that Emma Stone was this lab experiment of his, and she's developing from this like toddler state, and she's progressing through to just mentally developing at a exponential rate, and you're along for this ride. So yeah, there's all sorts of just weird, quirky elements to this, but it plays on some real taboo topics as well.
It does, and go into this with an open mind.
Yeah.
Because the first few scenes you'll be caught off guard, and eventually you'll understand the message that they're trying to put through.
Oh yeah, like I would hate for every movie I watch after this to be in the style of this.
Yeah. Even the lens effects that they like, the fisheye lens effect, that was kind of weird, but I was like, okay, like I kind of get it.
Sometimes it made a lot of sense for me. Other times, like whereas like they had like, it almost seemed like it was a hidden camera, right? To where like it's all blacked out except for like this little pocket that has this wide view, and it's just like, unless you're actually doing it from like a bunch of hidden cameras within this place, why did it didn't make sense all the time. But again, it just kind of put you in like a weirder element with the movie. Yeah, this is definitely not for the kids.
Definitely not. No,
I'd even question of a like this, definitely not like a first date sort of movie.
No, don't do that either.
It's too awkward. Yeah, it's gonna put too much stress on things. um, if you're a little bit, I'd say conservative with what like the sexuality notes you want out of a movie, you're gonna want to probably steer clear of this,
Again, you
because
have to go into it with an open mind because
yeah,
it's pretty wild.
uh, it doesn't fit just one genre. This thing again, it's wild, and I'll tell you some of the things that like I think kind of inspired it. I think a big thing that inspired it would be the success of like Netflix's Love on a Spectrum. Um, of us watching these people who have either like Down syndrome or autism, how they find their love, and they're bluntly honest with each other. And I think
Yeah.
that's something that people found like endearing, like, oh, like let's explore that, because that's something like Bella definitely does
Oh yeah,
throughout the
she's
movie.
very blunt. Yeah.
um, but but it's also there's a sensitive side to it as well, to where or
Yeah.
naive, or maybe she's a bit naive about the darkness of the world,
Yeah.
which I think that's something that goes along for those people who are in the spectrum. Like, you know, they very much need people to kind of protect them in the world, in a sense, because for them to explore it on their own without any safety guards, like it could easily take advantage of them. And
Yeah.
that's something that Bella, she's not immune to either. um I think it's also, I thought, like, man, how did somebody dream up this concept for this movie? And I was like, you know what, maybe they got drunk, or indulged in some other recreational activities.
Extracurricular activities.
Yeah. And Julian will pull up an image, but there's this girl on the screen now. Her name's Shauna Ray. She's, I believe, like in her 20s. I know she's able to like drink alcohol. I remember that from like one of the previews of the show. So she's this woman who's like in her 20s, but very much looks like she's in elementary school.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
I think somebody was like, man, that's weird, because she looks like she's like 10 years old, but she's actually like 25.
Yeah.
Can you flip that? And can you put somebody who looks like they're 25 but actually has the mindset of a 10-year-old?
Yeah.
Because
Dude,
that
not even a 10-year-old. It's like 6-year-old.
yeah, it
You could
develops.
barely form words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
um and so it's kind of wild that like either one of those premises is wild enough, but like this one where, yeah, you have somebody who looks like they're 25 or 30, and very very attractive, but you go to figure out that they have this adolescent mindset.
Yeah.
um so I got like some Chris Hansen vibes from it as well. Like, I was waiting for him to like come out with the script to go to Mark Ruffalo's character, like, oh, can I ask you some questions? What did you come here for, sir, today? Like, um, so yeah, it definitely, it had some pedo vibes to it,
It
like,
does. It does. It really does.
um, and so it's interesting as Bella's character develops. Um, so does her free will, right?
Yeah.
Her ability to make decisions. Um, so I think it modeled, uh in 2 hours they try to model like the position of women in society from like the 1920s to 2020, right?
Yeah.
Like to like, okay, like, from not having a big say in like politics and in the world and the workforce, to like,
Being taken advantage of, basically.
yeah, your job is to be at home, my wife, nothing more.
Yeah.
To being somebody who's potentially, you know, their own employer, their own boss, they're a professional. Um,
Yeah.
and how do certain men react to that? What are the things that's going to put somebody off? So the concept
Yeah.
of like body counts.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
I
Someone getting the
can tell you
spoilers
didn't
out.
think about that really.
Yeah. I was about to say something. I was gonna give a spoiler, but yeah, dude, that was a big thing too.
Yeah.
Um, we'll get more into it later on,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's pretty interesting.
And again, it very much plays on the modern paradigm that like, for a guy, it's not, a body count. It could be a bragging point.
Yeah.
But for a woman, it's a the scarlet letter. It's a mark of shame. Um, so it kind of plays on that. Who's accepting of a woman who has a high body count?
Yeah.
Uh, does that change the way you would feel about her if you didn't know otherwise? Um, and it
Yeah.
also, I think it also, uh, in the skate, God, it's amazing. It does all this in like the 2 hours. Um, also goes over like the modern, like I would say, like kind of the simp
Yeah.
culture, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely does.
Like these like dudes falling in love for this only, let's say like an OnlyFans model who puts everything out there,
Yeah.
right? For anybody who wants to pay the $5 to see it. But these guys like, no, like that's my lady, that's my, that's my everything.
I still love her either way.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, buddy. It's a wild one. It's an interesting one.
Yeah,
What's your rating on it?
um this is not a conventional rating. This honestly, this I walked out with a lot of the same feelings that the movie Saltburn gave me. If you guys watched
Yeah.
my review on that, you know that I love that movie. I think I gave that a 9 or 9.5. Uh, the more I think about this, the more I like it. It does like have more like creepy vibes to it. Like some of like they
Yeah.
have like these like weird animals, and this has a more sinister nature than
Dude, the
Saltburn.
chicken hog?
Yo, that was
Dude,
disgusting. Yeah.
that was amazing.
Oh, I hated that thing. Like,
Dude, merge two animals that eat everything. That's
yeah.
the best dumpster ever. Just
Um,
clean up your whole floor.
um, so I think I didn't vibe as much with this as I did with Saltburn, just because I'm not for that like that weird creepy like the whole Frankenstein aspect of this. Um,
Oh, I loved it.
but I think it was necessary to put it like they needed something to devolve it from our modern world. How do you make
Yeah.
this so it's not America or this is not a modern day setting? Okay, we're gonna put
Yeah.
these weird, impossible animal creations, and we're gonna change the timeline of the era, the technology, because that's the only way you could get away with like having somebody who's a lawyer, uh, hooking up with this 25-year-old child, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
if
detaching it from reality and still keeping that message is extremely difficult. And this movie did it really well.
yeah, and it's funny. You can't get away
Yeah.
with how funny the movie is as well. Sometimes it's physically just funny, and other times it's quirky, and
Yeah.
to me it's like a lot of it was like what I would call like British like dank humor, like
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
like like dark jokes that people would tell like while they're sipping tea, like
It adds some levity to the movie, which is needed. I mean, you don't want the whole movie to just be a drag.
yeah, they could have made this extremely like heavy and dark.
Yeah.
If like, but like, and that's what makes this movie interesting. It balances these things so well, um,
Yeah.
it, uh, and at times I felt comfortable with it, and then other times just like, oh, ugh.
Yeah.
Like God, I don't
Yeah.
like where this movie's taking me. Like this is weird. Um, but because of that, it's so different, and I think that's why you go to the movies. You don't want just the same story the whole time. Um,
Yeah, you don't want the formula that Marvel's developed at this point where everything's just the same.
yeah,
This movie really brings that different kind of vibe to a movie.
yeah. So I'm gonna give this an 8.5 officially.
Okay.
It's a strong rate.
I'd give it a 9 out of 10. The critics gave it a 93, audience gave it a 92.
Okay.
So yeah, right around there. It's a good movie. Definitely different, but definitely don't want others to follow the same path.
Yeah, or not once every like 3 months, maybe at the most. Right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, like
like anything
once in a
more.
blue moon. Yeah,
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 it's like if you like the movie Saw, like those, you don't want every movie to be Saw.
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
it's okay to have a Finding Nemo, like still
Yeah,
there. Like,
Kung Fu Panda 4 is
yeah,
coming out.
yeah.
Excited for that one.
So go check this out if you enjoy. I recommend you also seek out the movie Saltburn because it's very similar to that.
Mm.
Um, Now, hit like and subscribe if you're still rocking with us, and we're gonna give you guys like a few seconds here if you don't want spoilers, because now we're
Yeah.
gonna
So
now we're gonna get into it. We're really gonna start
yeah. So
talking
if you
about.
leave now, if you leave now, like and subscribe to the channel, and see you on the next one. But stay tuned for more in depth review of this movie.
Yeah. Okay, dude. So let's
Yeah.
talk about the spoilers moving forward. Like,
Yeah, dude. Fuck.
dude, there, I know you said you missed this part, but like, there's a part where this movie's just gonna be different.
Yeah, I missed
When
the first 5 minutes.
at
Hmm.
one point Bella goes up to this cadaver, that's Emma Stone's character, goes up to this cadaver, like grabs its dick, and she's like, and right before that she's like, cut, cut, and then like William Defoe's like, only the dead. She's like, okay. So like she goes over to this dead guy, like grabs his dick, and you're like, what are you gonna do to this? Like, and the guy's dead. Like,
Yeah.
he's dead.
Yeah.
And then she like grabs, and then like she just starts stabbing the dude in your face. You're like, oh, this is gonna get weird. Like,
Yeah, dude. So when I walked in, she was masturbating with a fucking apple. And in my mind, I'm like, what the fuck did Gary throw me into? Like, am I in the right mood? I swear to God, I looked around. I was like, am I in the right movie? What the fuck is going on? Twice I looked around to make sure I was in the right movie.
yeah, it's wild because again, her character is developing. I think they said she's learning 15 or 20 words a day. you
Yeah,
know so I think at the beginning of the movie she's at like a stage of like a 4-year old, 3-year old,
yeah,
and by the end of it she gets all the way to where she's going to be taking her medical school exams.
yeah,
So it's the full like learning stage. I didn't think
yeah,
about that till now. Like that's the full like academic like process, right? From
yeah.
like learning your ABCs and words, making sentences, to medical
Dude,
school
even
professional.
even the way she walked, she had like a kind of like a weird limp. And towards the end of the movie, like once she was going to school and everything, she was completely fine. She was walking with confidence, and she was fine.
Oh yeah, well, it's that clumsy toddler, right? The
Yeah,
toddler who's like, you're
exactly.
not sure they're gonna. You're like, oh, don't fall. What?
Well,
Uh,
even when she was with Duncan,
yeah.
when she was on the boat and all that, even then she still had that weird walk. It
Uh,
wasn't until she went to Paris and she started like actually learning, going to school, and yeah, learning other things,
yeah,
that she actually started walking with more confidence.
yeah. Um, so let's talk about how when this movie starts taking a turn for the creepy. Like, no, no,
Yeah.
no. You jumped into the creepy. Uh, but that's somebody finding their body, right? Which, uh,
Yeah, it's funny. She's like, I found myself to make myself
yeah,
happy every time. I was like,
Bella
damn.
found way to make instantly happy. Like,
Yeah.
and
Like, all
she's like,
right.
why isn't everybody else doing this? Like she goes like at a
Yeah.
very curmudgeon maid, and she's like, here, Bella, help you. Like,
Yeah, just grabs her.
yeah,
She got into my hairy business.
yeah.
It's like, oh shit.
Um, but she has this like there's another guy who's observing her, part of William Defoe, who she calls God. Uh,
Yeah.
his name's Godwin, but she calls him God, because that's also her creator in this.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we should talk about who Bella actually is. Um,
Oh yeah. Well, let's start with that. Bella was basically this guy's wife who she then decided, well, she was pregnant, right?
yeah, we learned
Uh,
Bella was she was pregnant, and at the end of the movie, we learned that she was like in this very troubled relationship.
yeah, it was with a sergeant
Yeah, it was like a
or
general some.
general, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, but he was very twisted. Like if you ever watched like
Yeah.
Game of Thrones, like Ramsay, the guy who like was into like just cutting people like that.
Yeah.
That's sick, twisted stepson. Ramsay in like
Yeah.
Game of Thrones. It was like very much like a vibe of him. Like he was cruel to people and enjoyed being cruel. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
apparently Bella was into that, and she had like they're saying like she hated the baby that she was pregnant with. Yeah,
Yeah. That's what he said. But I mean, I think she hated her life more than anything because
yeah.
then she jumped off the bridge with while still pregnant, and
Or
then that's. Go ahead.
or maybe she was also like didn't want to bring her baby into that world with her husband.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, it's true.
knowing that like it was gonna be damned, especially if it was a boy, like it was gonna grow up to be like the dad, and you know,
Well, not only that, but the dad might do things to his kid
yeah,
to make it even worse. Um, but yeah, jumped off the bridge. Supposedly she was still alive,
yeah.
according to Frankenstein. What was his name again?
So the actor's name or the character's name was
Character's name, yeah.
Godwin, something
Godwin, yeah.
Godwin, but it's played by William Dafoe,
Yeah.
and he's all cut up on his face, like
Yeah.
he's very much looks like Frankenstein's monster,
Yeah.
and so you know this guy brings the body to him, and he like conducts his experiment. He's like, I had to, it made sense, you know,
Yeah.
there's still electrical pulses in her body, but uh she
She
like
didn't want to be
yeah,
alive.
like her brain wasn't alive, but the baby was still alive. So I did the logical thing is I took
Well, he said he could have kept her alive. He
uh,
could have kept her alive regardless, but since she committed suicide and that was looked upon or
oh
looked
yeah,
down upon
yeah,
by society, he decided, you know what? Well, she didn't want to be alive, but the baby didn't have a choice. So let's put the baby's brain in this woman's body.
yeah. So now she's growing up. It's the mom body, but it has the mind of the baby who has
The daughter.
yeah, the daughter,
Yeah.
who knows nothing of the world, obviously. And William
Yeah.
Dafoe is a man of resources and has this house to where she gets to do everything. He's just kind of observing who he is,
Yeah.
and so that's who Bella is, and she's going through this, you know, really rapid growth, mental growth. They don't really explain why she's developing faster than like a normal baby.
I mean, the dude put a brain in another body, so
Yeah.
hormones. Yeah, I'm sure he could have figured it out.
But that's who Bella is, and so as people are meeting her, like, and you know, it's Emma Stone, who's
Yeah.
good looking, and you know, people are meeting her, like, oh wow, like she's very attractive, but
Yeah.
is she retarded or something? Like I think like that in the movie, that's like, oh,
Yeah.
she's the most beautiful retard I've ever seen. And it's like, oh well, that's not
Yeah.
exactly the case. Like,
Yeah.
um, so you get the, you know, this idea that she's this experiment, and um, at some point, she had this other caretaker who like she gets betrothed to. She's gonna marry,
Hmm.
and he's in love with her, which is kind of weird because like, dude, you've been taking care of this.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's like I get it. Like you spend enough time with someone that you may be attracted to or not, you will get attracted.
yeah,
But at the same time, it's like you raised this person. But again, like he saw her as a grown woman the entire time. Dude, the fact that she licked his ears, she's like, now do me.
yeah.
And he was just like, fuck, I don't want to do this because I know I'm gonna like it.
um, as you just brought that up, it reminded me. I just wrote it down. There's this movie called Nell that
Mhm.
grew up back that came out back in the day about what happened. Like it was a story about a girl who was born to a mom who had her mom had a stroke, so she
Okay.
couldn't talk normally, and
Mhm.
this child Nell, who is a fully normal, you know, no ailments, nothing holding her back, but grew up in isolation with his mom who had a stroke who couldn't speak normally. So she learned how to communicate
Oh,
differently, but she
yeah.
was a fully developed woman, but the mind was just grew up in this really weird thing. It's like, how do we introduce her back to society now?
Yeah.
And I think the caretaker in that also like becomes fancy of her, you know? And then it's like, oh man, but like, you know, it's that thing that's like, oh, like you see this person, it looks like a woman,
Yeah.
you know, and you know, and they're like, oh, she's so attractive, she's amazingly beautiful, and you know, it's one of those things that like I think that I don't know if he was looking for ways like to normalize who she was, but also just became endeared with this
Yeah, it's a
character.
weird one.
Um,
It's a weird one. And I don't know. I don't know. They couldn't have played it any other way. I think they did a good job at it,
yeah,
regardless.
because it's one of those things like, dude, would you rather date somebody who looks 10 but is actually 25?
Yeah. Like the one they
Right?
showed.
Yeah, because like
Yeah.
that's total pedophile vibes. Or
Yeah.
somebody who looks 25 but it like has the mindset of a child, like that's also creepy. Right?
Yeah. Like no matter which way you look at it, it's creepy.
yeah. So it's interesting, like so Mark Ruffalo meets this this adult child.
Yeah, Duncan, the lawyer, decides to find out who this woman is because they want to keep her captive. He's like, who the fuck is this that they don't want to let her out at all?
Yeah.
Which plays into the part of like men want to have what they can't.
Yeah.
That forbidden fruit. They're like, oh, I can't have that. Let me go see it.
And he straight up Donald Trumps her.
Yeah,
Just straight up just goes up and grabs her by like
I might do some editing on this video.
Hey, that's a
He
well.
grabs.
Yeah.
He grabs. All you need to say. You don't got to put more work on.
You can just put like put an emoji of a cat on that or something. But yeah, like, and she's like, oh wow, like she had never been touched by a man that way.
Yeah.
And by this time she had already been exploring herself and
She already stuck an apple up there.
yeah. And she's enticed by Mark Ruffalo's character Duncan.
Yeah.
And then so he sneaks her away. He decides, I'm like,
No, not really. He just tells her, "Hey, I'm going to take you out," and then she just goes and tells Godwin, "He's like, hey, I'm going to secretly leave, just letting you know."
yeah.
It's like,
Oh
all
yeah,
right.
yeah. It's a child trying to plot her scheme. She's like, just to let you know, I plan on sneaking away. And he's
Yeah.
like, what? But she is also communicating her free will. And I think
Yeah.
this could be like the father having a hard time letting go of his daughter, you know.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, no,
And
like
he accepts.
he wants to protect her, but she's like,
Mm,
if I like she said she in a fragmented sentence, she's like, if Bella stay, Bella hate. Like she
mhm.
says something like that. And it's like, I don't want you to hate me, but okay. Yeah, she's a
Not
creature.
only that, but I think also he figures out like I gave this monster its free will and it's exercising its free will. I can't stop it.
Yeah. Um,
So yeah.
so now Bella is uh traveling with Mark Ruffalo.
Yeah.
Uh and right away they're getting it in. Like what did she call it?
Dude, wasted no time.
Yeah, what did she call it? Uh rigorously jumping on him.
No,
Ferociously jumping.
ferocious jumping,
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah, I've never heard of that before. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah. Um and it's funny because at one point she's like after they've gone a couple rounds, she's like, "Oh, let's do it again." He's like, "Oh, honey, like there's a limit to how many times a man can perform."
I love how they played. It was like they even for me, like that's too much. Or
Yeah,
there's other people who can't please you like I can, but even for me, that's too
yeah.
much. That's thrice. So come on, bitch. Like
Yeah.
4 times. He's like, I'm tired.
Yeah, dude. And so she's like, "Oh, is this an inherent weakness of man?"
Yeah, yeah.
And he whimpers.
I hit him.
Yeah,
I hit him so
he's like,
hard. He's like, I think it
yeah.
is.
But at this stage, Bella's like his perfect woman, right?
Yeah,
Dude, she likes to get after it.
she's adventurous.
Yeah,
She's curious.
she looks up to him, right? Because he's this well known, or
Yeah,
like well traveled man who knows the world, and
has money.
yeah. But as soon as she decides to go somewhere else without him,
Yeah,
dude starts like falling apart. Like
he does. He's just pacing around. He hears a door, like goes and says, like nothing's happening. He's like, "What? Oh, you're back? Okay."
yeah. And again, Bella doesn't know the rules of the world, and as she goes out, she's learning to drink, and
Yeah,
uh, she's in bars with other dudes, and she's this horny chick, and she's like, "Well,
yeah,
I was like, she expresses at one point she was horny, and she let some dude go down on her, and he's
yeah,
like, what?
yeah.
Like, and like he starts freaking out, even though he very he said like he's been with hundreds of women.
Yeah, he's very like. He said someone had said about him that he'd been with hundreds of women. He's like, you kind of undersold me, but yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, damn.
So the fact that she went out and hooked up with like one dude, he loses his shit.
The dude gave her a head, and he lost it.
Yeah. Uh,
or the dude that touched her inner thigh.
yeah, dude. When he starts hitting his head on the table, like,
He lost it.
dude.
He was gone.
Uh, and like that's where you start seeing the trend. And this is where I kind of think it's like kind of like his red pill vibes, or like the passport bro vibes of this are like dying for him,
Yeah.
because like, oh,
Yeah.
like I no longer have this chick that I can control and manipulate, like,
Yeah.
and I think this is where it starts creeping into the narrative. Okay, it's no longer like the 1950s stay at home wife. It's
Yeah.
now the college
Now in
educated
the world.
spouse,
Yeah.
the sexual freedom of like the 1970s, 80s starting to creep in now.
Yeah. Like no longer do they have to stay at home, but they can actually explore the world,
Yeah, like
which is
this
what she was
kind of
doing.
like the feminist movement, like coming
Hmm.
out, like, no, like you're allowed to go out, you're allowed to have a body
Yeah.
count, you're allowed, like, it's the inkling of that, and like him losing his shit. He's like, no, like you're mine. Like he's so
Yeah.
damn possessive. Um,
Yeah.
even when like dude, they have this hilarious dance scene, which is like,
Oh, yeah.
dude, that like I wonder if that's gonna blow up as much as like Wednesday's dance scene. Uh,
I don't think so. I don't think a lot of people are gonna watch this movie, but uh,
but I think like it has like some
but
like it's gonna be harder to choreograph, but I think a lot of people you're gonna, I think we'll see it on Instagram and TikTok.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Um, but like there's this really like awkward guy who like after Bella goes out there like just freak dancing, like there's
Yeah.
like this weird performance out there. You
The fact that Mark Ruffalo was just fighting everybody that looked at her.
well,
Like at that
because
point,
like Bella at one point was like,
yeah.
she's like,
Exactly
what are
like
you
that.
doing? She's like, oh, that gentleman's winking at me, so I'm winking back at him. And Mark Ruffalo
Yeah.
immediately has to go. He goes full Hulk. Like
Yeah. So he's throwing people around.
he actually
And
became green with jealousy. Like
yeah, and that's the switch where you see him like, "Oh, no, like, this is mine. I want it to stay mine." And it's no longer like, "Oh, I'm just gonna use you for a little bit, I'm gonna throw you away." Because that was this his initial idea is like having her for a little bit and then throwing her away.
yeah,
But once he started getting jealous, he's like, "No, this is mine."
yeah. So
So yeah.
what does Mark Ruffalo do? Okay, I can't control her
Mhm.
in a city like Lisbon. Maybe if I
Yeah.
confine her to a boat. So then he tricks her to getting onto this boat, and I thought it was unique, quick, or interesting that she caught on to it. How
Yeah.
quickly she was tricked.
Yeah.
Uh, as soon as she realized she's at a boat at sea, she's like, "You did this so you can control me." Like she
Yeah,
didn't say it
so
like
you
that,
can
but
run away.
um, yeah. Um, and then well, she's on the boat. Her and Mark Ruffalo are having issues, and she meets this old
Yeah,
British
she
lady.
was
Like,
funny. Fuck. She was funny.
and that would be like someone today meeting an old hippie,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
like a classy old hippie who's like, "Oh, darling, I did a bunch of stuff back in the
Yeah.
'70s." Like you're the things, that'd be like an old hippie today who's like who's like classed up,
Yeah.
talking to like an OnlyFans model who like maybe feels bad about like the stuff they're doing, or
Yeah.
like, "Oh no, like I did it all too. Like there's nothing you can
Wasn't
say."
OnlyFans
Like,
in my time.
yeah.
Yeah.
um, and but that lady has this companion who's a cynic.
Yeah.
That's how he was. And he wants her to destroy Bella's like optimism,
He does.
which is weird. Like I thought that was a weird thing, but it also exposed Bella to the fact that like the world, you can't just be a bleeding optimist.
Yeah.
Like there's dark sides, and you should want to help, and like that's she never let. I don't think she ever lets go of that, like wanting to
To help the world.
make things better in a sense.
Yeah.
And there, throughout the movie, like from this point moving forward, there's like a socialist type of agenda in a sense. Like they straight up talk about, oh, we're going to a socialist meeting. um
Yeah.
but Bella realizes like, oh, like the life's not about just being rich and having all these nice things.
Yeah.
um it's you gotta be able, you gotta contribute, and there should be more balance.
Yeah. That guy played a good part because even he said, doesn't matter if you're socialist, doesn't matter what you are. The reality of things is this is the world. There are people that are poor, and if we were to go down there, they would rape us and kill us. And if they were here and we were there and they would come down there, we would rape them and kill them.
Yeah.
So regardless, like this is the
Yeah.
world.
Which I think that's also showing like the people who live in the ivory tower, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the excuse they
Yeah.
give, but it's like you could give some of you could be nicer,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
so I think that's kind of the dichotomy there. So Bella feels bad, so she takes all of Mark Ruffalo's money, all of it, all of it, and they give it. Oh, she gives it away to the poor. So now the next time they go to harbor, they get kicked off the ship, and Mark
She doesn't
Ruffalo
give
is
it to the poor.
pissed.
She gives
Well, she thought she
Yeah,
did.
she gives it to the sailors.
She,
Which one of them
she
was
got
Liam Gallagher from the Gallagher's what's it called?
shameless.
Shameless. Did you catch that?
I didn't catch that.
Yeah,
No.
he was the one she gave the money to. That was the
Yeah.
guy that played Ian Gallagher? No. Liam Gallagher? Fuck. One of the Gallaghers.
One of the Gallaghers, yeah. So she thought she did a good deed, but she got scammed, which I think that's a common thing now. Whenever donate money to this, and it's a charitable organization that doesn't actually use, only 5% of the money actually goes on to charitable endeavors.
It's a whole different episode. We can get into.
yeah. But now they're in Paris. The wonderful city of Paris in the winter. Mark Ruffalo's pissed because they have no money.
And she just pulls out a wad of cash.
Well, she after a while she pulls out the money that William.
Well, first she goes to the brothel.
Well, yeah. Well, she like he puts in like, what are we gonna do? We have no food. We have no money. So she's like, I will find us a place to stay. And she's like sees this house that has this red light in the front of it. She's like, this is a weird. She goes and talks to the madame.
Yeah.
Who was like, essentially tricks her into her first trick.
Yeah.
Right. Like, she's like, that was interesting. Like, I made money and I got to explore another man.
Yeah.
Like, and it was a 3-pump chump, right? Like, and she's like, oh well.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, I was saying, she's like, after like she sleeps with this, like she's like trying hard not to laugh at this dude's face.
When she goes back to Mark Ruffalo, she's like, you told me you do really well in bed, and you know what, you actually do. This guy kind of sucked.
He's like, what? Like, it's like
you just lost it.
I think it's like kind of like that joke, like, how do you make a man smile and cry at the same time? How does a man's wife make him smile and cry at the same time?
I think I've heard this one. How?
Tell him his dick's bigger than his brother's.
So fucked up. God, I don't know if we're gonna put this episode out. Fuck.
But that is this movie. If you've watched the movie like that, this is very much in line with that movie.
Yeah, dude, it's wild.
And so like Mark Ruffalo, like he's like what, like, because like she even brings him like a chocolate eclair. He's like just throwing, like, just mad.
Yeah.
And like at this point, Bella's tried to like continue on this relationship with Mark Ruffalo.
Yeah.
And she just realized, like, you're never gonna accept me for, because I'm trying to figure shit out.
Yeah.
Like, this is no longer fun for me. I think you're a bad person. Like, realized that he only liked her when she was in this like super naive state. And
she was oblivious to the world is when he found her attractive.
Yeah. So then that fool takes all her money.
Yeah.
Like all of it. And then she goes to the whorehouse and is like, I would like employment.
Yeah. And at this point, she started to talk a little more sophisticated.
Yeah.
She's starting to develop a little bit more.
Well, that's something that happened on the boat, right? She was starting, she was well, by the time they got on the boat, she was talking in sentences. But she started reading philosophy.
Yeah.
And so she's working at this whorehouse. And she's kind of upset at the fact that she doesn't get to pick the guys.
Yeah.
And she even tries like to put in some like rules, or like she makes her own little rules to it to where it's like, oh, like this should just be like, okay, you tell me a story, I tell you a
Yeah.
joke.
You tell me a
Eh,
story, a childhood memory, and I'll tell you a joke, and then I'll sniff you and see if we can move on.
yeah,
If or if put
yeah,
some
or you have to take a
lavender.
bath or something. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And so just a bunch of sex scenes.
Which,
Like,
now that I think about it, it starts to show the change, for women is before, like, they give you whatever guy they chose for you. Now it's like you get to be a little more picky. It's like, okay, you get to learn a little bit more about this person. Do you actually like them and all that? So she starts to go through that change.
yeah. And then maybe this is like where it also gets into like the weirdness of the modern like world, right?
Dude,
Like,
that fucking Lord of the Rings looking guy. What's his name?
there's some there's a guy who like had like a golem kink.
Gollum. He was straight up Gollum, dude.
Yeah, like
Fucking walking
he's
on all fours. Dude, that was wild.
yeah. So like they explore all sorts of different kinks,
Yeah,
like um, and you know she's figuring out what she likes, what she doesn't like,
yeah.
um, and and,
Dude,
and
the guy that takes his kids to learn about sex and the kids are watching, is like, holy shit. And she's like, if you choke him, it goes a little bit faster.
oh, there's like you can either stick a finger up his ass, and he's like, no, 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 no. It's like, or just choke him a little, like,
And then he finishes, he looks over, like, yeah, that works. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh
Uh,
god.
and Mark Ruffalo at this time, he's a broken man. He's like crying outside her window, Bella,
Yeah.
and she's
Pulling
like
her
get
hair
out of
out,
here. Yeah,
or his hair out.
he's like stalking her.
Yeah.
Uh, like at one point, remember, and he's like, "Did you fuck that guy with the hook?"
Yeah. I wouldn't beat his ass. I know you fucked up.
um. So yeah, it's a wild set of scenes,
It's a wild
and at
ride.
this time, Bella she's going to like these university lectures about anatomy, because that's like that's what her god, her like her dad, her father figure in the movie.
Yeah.
He was into that, and uh, Mark Ruffalo devolves to the point where he's in a mental institute, which is kind of
Yeah.
wild. Um, and uh, yeah, you know, she ends up going home, and she's gonna eventually marry the guy who she was originally gonna marry.
Mhm.
And
The simp, I
she,
don't know his name.
yeah, but like this dude, like he was genuinely like intrigued with who Bella was,
Who she
and
became at that point.
yeah,
'Cause at first it was endearing, that he spent so much time with her, they got endeared towards her, and then at that point, once she came back, he was more interested in the person she became.
yeah.
And
After
she's
she
like,
went
"Oh, I've
through
been a
her,
whore though." I was like, "I don't care. I don't care
yeah,
if you've been a whore. That's alright with me."
she had her 304 phase. Oh. um, and uh, you know, they're about to get married, and then like this is when her first husband, you realize, like, oh, she was married. Like that's where the backstory,
Yeah,
her original husband comes back into play.
Alfie, yeah.
Uh, and who put these pieces back together? Mark Ruffalo, salty ass.
Yeah.
Like,
That's right, bitch. You're already married.
yeah. um, yeah, and so Bella's like, oh no, I want to go with him. Like she wanted to see what her original life was like.
Yeah.
And at this point, she's learned that she was a science experiment.
Yeah,
Uh,
she learned the truth at that point, and I guess she wanted to know her mom's life
yeah, like take yeah, like both her and like her mom's like
because she's
who
not really her mom.
yeah,
She's the daughter.
um, that who was the life of the body before the new
Yeah,
mind took over. That's where she realized like, oh no, my husband was a complete asshole,
yeah,
and he locked her up. He tried doing the same thing Mark Ruffalo did, like
yeah,
lock her up in a prison,
but in a
essentially.
more cruel way.
Yeah, and the husband like and Bella like decides like she's gonna leave him when she overhears this guy who's shown to be intensely cruel that
Hmm.
he was gonna get her get her clit removed.
Yeah.
Like,
So she wouldn't
um,
feel anything anymore.
yeah, he was gonna sexually mutilate her.
That was because he
Uh,
found out that she was a whore. Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, he's like,
Uh,
this. He essentially was like, oh, this is a sickness that you have, and we're gonna get rid of it by removing any sort of sexual feeling.
yeah. So, but she overheard his plans to do this, and then she's able to stymie it. But in the skirmish, the dude shoots himself in the foot, and he's bleeding out pretty bad.
Yeah.
So she takes him back to her god's house, like her father's house, and that's where like her the guy she was gonna marry, who's a medical professional, like
Mhm.
they stopped the bleeding. Now, dude, I'll be honest.
I'm
I
thinking the same
thought
thing. I'm thinking the same thing.
what
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I thought they were gonna take the brain out of William Defoe
Godwin.
and put it, yeah, Godwin, and I thought they were gonna put it in the dude.
Me too. I thought the same thing. And I
Um,
was thinking about, I was like, okay, that makes sense. Like they want to keep him alive. But at the end, I was like, no, it makes sense. Like that was his end. That was his legacy. They didn't want to mess with that.
and I think and it makes more sense because, well, one I thought that was his ambition. I thought he was trying to figure out the process because they do a second Bella.
Mhm.
They have another chick who
Yeah.
they do the body mind switch, um, and I thought he was trying to perfect it so he could do it to himself.
Yeah. Me too.
To see can you put an old brain into a new body and get it to go?
Yeah.
Um, and because like he was that William Defoe's character was like sexually mutilated by his father. He was a eunuch. He didn't have
Yeah.
male genitalia and all that. So like,
His line, I was like, it'll take more power to make me ejaculate than the amount of power that England goes through, like or something
yeah,
like that. I was like, damn, that was pretty good. And the
um,
guy's like, what did you say?
yeah. Like you feel bad for William Defoe's character
Yeah.
because he's just the like just a bunch of torturous science
Yeah,
experiments.
his balls are branded and whatnot. Dude, that was wild.
Yeah, and uh, yeah, and then when Bella figure sees that they made like a second version of her,
Yeah.
she's like, you guys are monsters." So I think that makes more sense of why she didn't. Like, she realized that maybe she could have done it. They could have tried it, but then she would have became a monster
Herself.
herself.
She
Yeah.
technically still did it.
Well, yeah. She takes her original husband, the asshole general, and
Yeah.
switches his brain with the goat.
Yeah.
Uh, which now that I think about it, that's the inverse from the movie The Lobster. In the movie The Lobster, what happens? You go to like this camp, and if you don't find your true love after a certain amount of days, they switch you with an animal of your choosing.
Oh shit.
So like, you can be like, oh, if I don't find my true love, turn me into a dog, and they'll make you into a dog.
Okay.
So like throughout the movie, you see like these weird, like a llama will go by, or a
Yeah.
pig, uh, and it's called a lobster because Colin Farrell's character is like, oh, make me into a lobster because they can live forever, and
Yeah.
um, but that's taking I guess the mind of somebody putting it into an animal.
Yeah, dude. When he was eating
Uh,
that grass
yeah,
and man, it's like, my God,
and
that's fucking
this
hilarious.
Bella took the brain of a goat and put it into her husband.
Her
Uh,
ex-husband's
yeah,
head, yeah.
and she's there and she's living her best life at the end of it. Um, and uh, yeah, this sounds like a wild movie
It's a
because it
wild
is a
movie.
wild ass movie.
And that's what I'm saying. Go into it with an open mind, because if you go into it knowing nothing about the movie, no fucking pre-existing idea about it, and you watch those first few scenes, it's wild. You're like, what the fuck did I just get dragged into?
Even if you watch this full, nearly 1 hour,
Yeah,
like
you're not
like
prepared.
yeah, you're still gonna be like, oh wow, like we told a pretty good synopsis of it, but
Yeah,
you'll still be able to enjoy it. And I think at the very least, you'd be like, it can't be everything Gary or Hempy and Toggles there. Uh, can't be everything they made this movie out to be.
yeah,
And
it is. It is.
Yeah, it's fun. It's also gross. It's twisted, but it
Cringy.
also it can also be viewed in the lens of a romantic. It touches on all sorts of social issues.
It does. It does.
Uh, it also will give you the ick with some pedophilia vibes, some
Yeah.
PO, but also like the purity of like love on a spectrum, like just the
Mhm.
honest heart, like willing to take in the world. Um, it's again, do not take if it hasn't been blatantly clear, not a family movie, not a family movie. Um, if you're very conservative, not for you. Uh,
No, not at all.
you got to go in it willing to laugh and not take things to heart. And
Seriously. Yeah.
but it's a good one. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, so do I. It's definitely not my type of movie. Something I definitely wouldn't have watched if he hadn't told me. But yeah, no, it's worth the watch for sure.
Yeah. So guys, it's been 52 minutes with us.
Bro, if you're still here, go buy the tickets right now.
Oh, I was gonna say hit like and subscribe.
Oh,
Come on, we need it. All right,
hit that like, hit that subscribe, and take care, everybody.